Welcome to episode 5 of season 2 of the Retro Brothers. My name's Dave.
And my name's Andy.
How are you?
Not too bad, how are you?
Yeah, very well. We've had a huge hiatus. I mean, it's almost like we've had a year off, which we will discuss, not this episode, probably the next episode.
It's called Summer Chores.
It's called Summer Chores, yeah. It's called, Life Gets in the Way is what it's called. So, this week we're going to talk about computers from the other countries, from around the world, in the 80s. And we've chosen Eastern Bloc countries and Russia for this one. Some very interesting ones on this list.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Russia or the USSR, actually. I think because... they're 8-bit. I suppose it's... 1989, the Berlin Wall came down. I suppose communism fell in Russia, I suppose, in that round about that time. But it is 90... why I picked this one, because it is 1990, so it's sort of on the cusp of the Western world coming in, but not quite. So it's the Orion 128. When I actually researched this, there's absolutely tons of clones out there in Russia. So there's a lot of old military computers. Definitely, Russia made their own for definite. A couple of things I found out actually is that a lot of people in Russia or living in Russia invented a lot of it. The Intel chip. Sort of some of the Intel stuff, its people originated in Russia, believe it or not. But yet, they weren't. Americans or the US embargo didn't allow Western technology or a lot of it to go into Russia without being approved. And so they didn't get a lot. Well, they certainly didn't get as ZX Spectrum as it were. Or the Commodore never entered USSR. It were clones basically. So I've gone for the Orion 128 just because A, 1990 it came out, and B, it's an Intel chip as well. So it's the Intel 8080 CPU that were released in 1974 and discontinued in 1990. So the Orion 128 is a strange kit actually. So it comes out at the very year that Intel discontinue the chip. It's very much, I think it was supported until 1994, so it's the very, very last piece of hardware to support the Intel 8080. So strange bit of kit. There weren't many games out for it, but originally it was DIY as well. So sort of part of the to do with radionic technology and radio technology. That a lot of kit computers came out in the USSR. So very much the Orion 128 to begin with started off as a kit computer, obvious that you could create yourself, but it was actually manufactured later on towards the end, between 1991 and 94, and obviously, like I say, supported up until then. And yeah, it is a weird, if you look at it, it is a weird, don't know if you can get a picture of it.
It's a bizarre looking machine. There's been there's quite a few out there. The IQ 151 looks, it almost looks like wood, the colour on it, but
yeah,
it's not. But yeah, there's some bizarre looking machines. There are, even from the West, there's some really bizarre looking machines from the 80s, especially the kit computers, or the ones that didn't quite make it into the mainstream.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? What's weird about the Orion 128? It's on an Intel 8080 chip, and then when it gets discontinued, it's then superseded by the Orion Pro. Now you'd think the Orion Pro would be a 1994 386 486. No, Z80 processor, 5
5 megahertz.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Yeah, I'm not sure whether I'd call that one Pro, but I suppose being that Intel discontinued 8080 in 1990, it's wasn't a great chip anyway, so you might get about to squeeze a little bit more out of Z80 potentially.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it had. It had CPM. Yeah, the OS. It had CPM on. 80. I'm talking about the Orion 128, so it had CPM on it. But there were a lot of Spectrum games that are ported over to it, which again bizarre. Majority of them were Spectrum games actually. So it is bizarre. It only had 16. So yeah, 16 colours, 384 by 256 resolution, and I think 28K of RAM. The Orion 128.
Ample memory back then.
Well, it was, yeah. I'm trying to have a look actually. The Orion Pro Z80 CPU had 512K of RAM. So yeah, the Z80 version had more memory. But it did support CPM as well, though.
I wonder if it was a limitation
even,
of the 8080 back then. I wonder if
yeah.
there was a limitation on how much memory it could address at the time. So maybe the
Well,
Z80 gave it that boost. I'm not too sure
probably.
actually, because I didn't really follow Intel till later on.
No, I mean, the fact it were out in 1974. I suppose how much memory in 19. You think back to 1974, how much memory people thought they actually needed. Because the 8080 chip is definitely consumer as well. It's not it's not a big heavy industrial, so something that you've got in massive, with reels and reels of tape and stuff. So yeah, I should imagine in those days 28K were a lot of memory. I'm not sure what that. I'd have to have a look actually, but what the 8080 actually could actually go up to. But yeah, I picked that one because it was strange, and I picked it because 1990. Fall of the Berlin Wall, fall of communism in Russia, and they chose to release something, that Intel, uh, got rid of the chips that end of support of manufacturing the very same year. So a bit of
Maybe
a weird.
that's the point, though. The was the Z80 on the list of an embargoed CPU up
Yeah,
until that point.
yeah, it
So if
was.
it
Yeah,
was, that's probably one of the reasons why they didn't use it. And then when they could get access to it, they switched over to the Z80.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And there's some weird ones, and I think we'll do some sound bites and look at some more. There's a couple of even the names. I picked that one up because the name, the Orion 128, the name just stood out. But you've got some of them from Poland, Electro Mash, what a brilliant name. But yeah, there's a fair few on that list. So it's on homecomputer.de. There's an Eastern European section in there. It lists absolutely loads in there for anyone that wants to have a look.
We'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah, yeah, and the very first one, the GAT, is that the wooden one that you were talking about?
Well, it looks like a bit of wooden one. It's an IQ151. It's a school computer based on an 8080A, 2 megahertz, 32K of RAM, and had a little TV out on there, and you could add a graphic monochrome module, 512 by 256 pixels resolution. Had a single speaker and 5 expansion ports on it. Apparently, had a really terrible power supply. It tended to overheat, but it does look very bizarre. It's got square keys with a sort of round raised area that you actually use for your pressing the key, I guess. It's very hard to describe, but it looks like a very bizarre looking one. That's why I chose the IQ151. But then you've got, some of the others. You've got the Tesla Ondra. It's probably not even pronounced correctly, but apparently it's a very rare computer. CPU U880D, which was a Z80 clone. 64K of RAM, 4K ROM, TV output, graphics display, 320 by 240. It looked like a very poor man's attempt at a Spectrum clone. When you look at the amount of keys on the keyboard, it was like, did they miss a few keys there? You know, it's probably one of those bizarre keyboards where you had to press a function key or another key or alt key just to get access to half of the characters.
Yeah, what I tell you what I find amazing. Well, I actually find amazing how many you in USSR what they're going to clone. Well, they want to clone a British computer, not an American, obviously, but a British. There's over 40 different clones released in the USSR in USSR, or certainly
Spectrum
in the
was
Eastern
massive,
Bloc.
though.
That's
massive.
a lot. That's a
Yeah.
lot of clones for a
Yeah.
Spectrum, and that's just the ZX Spectrum alone.
It kind of makes sense, really, as well, because there were plenty of software, if you could get it on the black market, I guess, at the time. Spectrum had so many games. I mean, I know you had Commodore and all the rest of them, but it was big, the Specky in the 80s. And I guess that's the one that they wanted to copy because of access to software, maybe. Who knows? Or maybe the Z80 was very easy to clone compared to the others. Because the Commodore 64 had more customization chipsets in there, where the Z80 was a Z80.
Yeah, very true. And this sort of leads us on to it's very much a Spectrum theme week. My first ever. So I'm trying to think actually. The very last time I bought a physical game for an 8-bit computer. Actually, the last time I bought a physical game, come to think of it, must be. And we're gonna talk about the Switch in another in another episode. But for the Switch, Mega Drive, Museum, it's probably the last physical game I bought, and that must be 2 years ago. It's been digital since, I think. Normal. But having said that, so going back to 8-bit, let's go back to 8-bit. 1987, I think, and it was Arkanoid for the ZX Spectrum Plus 2. Just before I sold it and got my Atari ST in May 1987, it was when I sold my Spectrum and got my Atari ST. But where's the camera?
So that's the first ever physical game for a while. So for the viewers who aren't watching this in video, and quite frankly, why you're not, because our beautiful faces should be watched.
Absolutely.
ZX Spectrum Next. Xeno, is it?
Yeah,
Brigade.
Brigade.
Yep. So it's like a DVD dual case with some great artwork.
It's DVD. Yeah, it's a DVD dual kit. So it's basically it's the same size as a Spectrum. No. Spectrum, same size as sort of an Xbox or PlayStation. In fact, the top is very reminiscent of PlayStation banner in it. Really, but
it's got a black band with.
But it's got a ZX Spectrum Next band. It's obviously the Bitmap Soft is the software house.
We've got something on the back screenshots.
Certainly has. So
some screenshots, bit shiny, but I can see what. Oh yes, look at that. Yeah. Description of the game and some screenshots to entice you into buying the game.
Yeah.
So was this an online purchase?
It was. Yeah. I mean, they do the. You can buy the digital copy for certainly for less than a tenner. This were about just over 20 quid, I think, including postage. But obviously my Next hasn't come, and I'll talk about that next. It's not come yet, but I just wanted, when I get it, I just want to have something physical to play.
So inside,
obviously you get the SD card, and even that. Let's get that out actually. So obviously, the SD card is branded.
Yeah, it's on the casing. Yeah,
so that's quite nice. And obviously, I expected, having. We've all had PlayStations and Xboxes in the past. When you get them, you expect it to be blank like that.
Yeah, so
you
no
don't expect
manual, no
everything in
nothing.
it
Yeah.
whatsoever. But that's a good picture. Again, some nice pictures in there. But what you get in it is obviously you get a leaflet. Join the retro revolution today. Retrovideogamer.co.uk. There's forums and everything, but you get a booklet.
A game
So
manual.
A proper game manual.
And is it just how give you the health and safety of how to lift the box and then show you nothing else, or does it actually go through the game?
No, I don't actually. So
so you've got actually some information on the game itself.
Yeah.
Xenohordes.
I think it is. Is it Xenomorph? What's the? I'm trying to think of the 2D shoot 'em down game, which Alien Breed.
Alien Breed, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is very much like.
Well, that's definitely worth getting. Then, yeah, definitely worth getting.
So yeah, it's got the interface controls. Very much the controls to the game, all the weapons. So tons of weapons that you can buy. Obviously,
different characters or different enemies
different
in there.
Characters, maps,
tutorial,
map description, tutorial. Yeah. I think it's to me. I think it's very. It's very much. I think this is what Soul is missing from games now.
That's great. It's showing some maps, different levels.
Although
I don't remember that in the older games, showing you the entire level, but I'm sure it'll be insta death anyway after a few lives, and you have to start from scratch. So
obviously we're
won't be as easy.
Yeah, with Bitmap Soft, obviously they've done a few now actually for the ZX Spectrum next. So what excites me is my next purchase maybe could
vegetables.
Be, yeah, is it vegetables or vegetales?
Vegetables.
Vegetale, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know what. I can't quite read it. So let's see if anybody's got 4K screen with.
Tell us how the hell do you pronounce it? This. Us
it might just well. Yeah, it might be just well. We can't read. Yeah,
and obviously at the back, the couple of. More titles out there. So there's a lot there. So the book, yeah, okay. I mean, we've talked, we've spoken about this in some other episodes, haven't we? Some of the internals and some of the stuff you used to get with games in the 80s, where you have maps that you opened out and massive, manuals. But I think it's great that we've even got that, because I expected to get an empty, almost empty with a.
Do you know what? So you paid about 20 quid,
yeah,
$25, say, and then you get decent artwork. You got a case. You got physical storage. You've got a decent little manual. So they've not just put a little manual in there, just keep putting controls in and just done it half-hearted. They've actually put some effort into that. And they've about 6-7 pages, maybe a few more in that manual in total.
Probably more. It's probably about 12 pages. So
yeah, okay, 20 quid's probably a lot of money these days for a game to some people. But you know what? It supports the people who are developing these games or publishing the games.
You pay that for indie games on the Microsoft Store, and you get nothing with that.
You get nothing. It's
just digital.
Yeah, well, it's in the future this, but I am going to heavily rant about the payware aircraft in simulators these days, because obviously it's all the rage at the moment, and how lack of a manual you get, even on a PDF. So we will talk about that. We'll talk about the laziness, having a lack of instructions, and expecting you to work it out. And in Sims, it's not easy. So that's good. That's really good. So what's the website you can buy that from?
So that's from www.bitmapsoft.co.uk. There's more than that on it. Like I said, there's a few games on there for the Spectrum Next, and from date of order, it took about 3-4 days for it to arrive.
That's not bad. That's not bad. So I'll put that in the show notes so people can go to there and support them. If you get in a Spectrum Next, grab yourself at least one physical one. You've got to have it so you can sit it in your box with your Spectrum Next when you don't play it, because we know you buy gadgets.
Absolutely. And they do have, I mean, when I've been on the website, they've even got ZX Spectrum 128K games on there as well, cassettes. So Sophia, I think Sophia and Sophia 2, I think they're new games as well. So that yeah, it's definitely they're definitely people that still make games for the Spectrum, but they've got, to be honest, they've got games in there. They've got the Amiga, Amstrad CPC, Atari 2600 is in there, C64, Game Boy, PC. There's a MS DOS, the Spectrum, and then Spectrum Next. There's more than I thought. I don't know if they make them all, but certainly on
certainly distributing them.
Yeah, they're distributing, but they do make a lot of them themselves, yeah, there's some good Amiga games.
So here's a question for you. I mean, this is what I like. I mean, I have actually changed our description of who we are, what we do, because I don't want people to think we just think about retro all the time, because we don't. We talk about new stuff as well, and we are brothers who work in the technology industry. We like retro things because that's where we come from, but we are retro ourselves because we are getting on a bit, so we are retro ourselves. So it's kind of a 50-50 for our title of our podcast. But this is what I like. So we get excited about retro stuff. We get excited when people reproduce retro stuff. But did you think in 2021 you could go and buy a Spectrum game? Did you ever think that was going to happen?
No.
And do you know what? How good is that? So here's the thing, and I know there's good old games, GOG.com, and you can buy some old PC titles from years ago, but it's not the same, is it?
No, these are new games. These are these are games that have probably come out in the last 10 years.
Well, they are new games, yeah, but you can still get your hands on the older titles as well, on different places. But what I'm saying is, how many places or how many times do you think that you're going to see old PC games that you can get hold of, or new ones that are retro? So for example, you have an old 286, and you decide you want to play a retro style game with EGA graphics or VGA graphics. How many people produce them?
Well, yeah. I mean, when you think about it, people are still making, the Spectrum games out, a couple of years ago for a machine that's not been in production for 30 years.
And that just shows a testament. It's like the Amiga, it's like Atari ST, all these things, and that people are still producing and still managing software for these machines. Could you fire up a 286 PC and then find some software that someone's still producing? Probably not.
No, probably not. I'm not even sure I'd want to install MS DOS on the 6 or 7 floppy disk.
Well, there is DOSBox, and you can get access to old games, but when it comes down to it, there are old games. No one's producing them. I think this is great. These machines were, at the time, huge. But ultimately, custom hardware, custom makeup, the OS, and everything was all its own. But yet, people still producing for them. People are still loving reproducing the hardware and doing new games. So I love this. It's great. I love new games. I love firing up something and getting 4K, full graphics, high end, and totally immersed in it. But I love the fact you can go onto here, you can buy a brand new Spectrum game. It's an SD card. It
is, and I can't wait. Actually, it's going to sit on my shelf back of me, the recreated Spectrum case.
Well, obviously you display your retro hardware. I've just got effectively an IT-ish background. All these boxes behind me contain cables and memory, and I've got old VoIP phones there and an old N95 and stuff like that. So, but we are going to talk about that probably in the next few episodes coming up, where we're going to talk about all the gadgets we've bought. Now, you've got a lovely display. I have to admit, it looks really, really good. But the question is, and we'll talk about it in a few weeks' time, do you actually use them? So that'll be an interesting conversation.
It will. And yeah, well, the fact that they're sat there on display, it's hard to use them. I think, yeah, I'm gonna have to pick it up. The cables aren't with them, so I'm gonna have to go somewhere and find where I've got the cables, get the cables out. What I'd like, yeah, I think I've said this before. What I'd like to do is, what I wanted to do is put a screen on wall so I could just sort of wheel up there and use them there, and they're already connected to a TV. And I might do that under there. I'm not sure yet. I probably need to sort my desk out and probably have the cables here somehow, put them in some sort of a connectors box. But the C64 in the middle, I am doing a review on that at the moment, history and a review and a teardown. So that's going to be in a future video for us to discuss as well. So I have used that, but only for that purpose.
We'll definitely go into some more depth in the next.
We'll talk about
next few weeks on that one.
But yeah, so there will be a review coming up on the C64 and something else that we're going to want to do later on as well. Another episode. I want to talk about books, computer listings, magazines, and computer listings, and actually type one out and review it. Because
what do you mean? You mean actually go into an old magazine or book and type it in the program?
I'm obviously not going to in real time type listing out. That's going to take a few hours.
Well, I'll tell you what. You record that, and I will speed it up, and we'll see how many mistakes you make. We'll speed it up.
But so what I'll do is on the C64 on the review, I will actually do one on there, and then I'll do one on the BBC as well.
I look forward to you finding what's wrong with those data lines.
Yeah, it's not that. It's when you spend sometimes. Well, we will talk about it later, but days, and then it ends up being a total pile of rubbish when you run it.
Yeah, that's a big disappointment.
Yeah, but I'll do that. And how many people modified them because thought, this is rubbish. Let's extend it. So yeah, we'll talk about that later as well in another episode. So there's plenty to come.
We're talking of Spectrums. Spectrum.
Yeah, so obviously,
news.
Yeah. So the Spectrum Next. Well, and I think this is what made me go out and buy this because I received an email, obviously from Henrique, who was obviously one of the people that's part and runs the Kickstarter for the Spectrum Next. So the last update, it's a few week old now, but the design for the board's now completely. So they're basically taken. So basically from the first Kickstarter onto the second, what they've done is with the board, and I've said this in a few other episodes as well, that they've decided to take time to improve on the design from the original. And this is not to rubbish the original, and they're not doing the same. The original is a brilliant machine. It works. It does the job. But I think they felt that they could optimize on things and move some modules and sort of change them and sort of make it a better machine this time round, especially when they've had over 10,000 backers for the second one.
Wow.
Which is more than double, I think, from the original. So you're going to have 10,000 more Spectrum Nexts in the world, and I think they need to last as well. So the 2C design's been revised and done, and it's packed in more than 30 changes and improvements from the 2B model. Yeah, so it says it takes it to the next level. So the many changes that have include a new certified Wi-Fi module, so it's fully retro compatible with the existing software that you can get for the Spectrum Next and the Spectrum. It's got better noise reduction throughout the board, better expansion port handling, Improved tape input as well for easy loading on some new tape decks. So I don't know if you've noticed, there seems to be a craze at the moment for tape again. Certainly audio tape, and
Yeah.
obviously, and to play that you need tape recorders. So these actually, believe it or not, you can go out and buy tape recorders now. The people who, the manufacturers are selling them. So this what they've done is they've made it more compatible to the newer tape decks that you can buy out there. Certainly it's got cleaner audio output, stronger internal speaker signal to support airwise sound reproduction.
It sounds like it's a massive upgrade.
Absolutely massive. It's got extra protection on the ports as well, and more power available to the peripherals as well. So I've looked actually recently. There's loads of peripherals coming out and that have come out. So again, it's going to be more optimized. The RAM lanes are more optimized as well. Speaking of that, so they've done a hell of a lot of work on it, and to me, it just excited me. And obviously, it's delayed it somewhat.
Again,
But
let them get it right, and if it takes a little bit longer to do it,
now obviously,
best off.
One thing that's the fallen foul to is the chip shortage. So the shipping timeline, which was going to be this month as we speak, and as we speak, it's September 2021. But now what they're saying is it could be probably another 12 weeks. But what they've asked the backers is, and we were asked to vote. Originally, the machine, all the components were going to be sourced either in the UK with very minimal components from the EU. Because of the shortage and the pricing, talking another year, if not more, until these components are going to be available and the machine's going to be assembled. So what they've asked backers is, they've actually sourced and found a component manufacturer in China who will manufacture the components to a very good standard. However, those components will still be shipped to the UK, and the machine will be assembled in the UK. So what they've asked the backers is, are we happy for components to be brought in from the East?
I mean, ultimately, half of this stuff's getting produced in the East in its most base level, and then still shipped over for them to work on anyway. So, you know what? I wouldn't have a problem with that as long as it's still getting manufactured to a good quality, and then it's assembled in the UK, so it can be tested, and you got a bit of QA and everything going on. I think that's okay. So you voted yes?
I certainly did, yeah, and looking at it, the majority of people did. There was some exceptions that they just they had to be purists. They had to be UK only, and that's it. But do they want to wait? Well, I suppose they did, but I think overall the majority, you know, most of the components can be sourced in under 12 weeks or more than a year, and even then, who's to say it's going to be even then? When there's a lot of even bigger manufacturers waiting for components.
Well, I can tell you right now, we used to use Draytech routers in the business I work for. Can't get them, and we don't know whenever they'll come back. But you buy a switch these days, they're out of stock. If you buy other routers, they're out of stock. Everything's out of stock at the moment, and this is all sort of just snowballing. So I think you've done the right thing by choosing to do that.
Yeah.
Looking at
it's cost them more as well, and this is that software. The first Kickstarter they did it basically a loss because they were learning, and obviously there were things that they didn't account for. So in the end up it did lose them, and the second Kickstarter were meant to be able to recoup the costs from the first Kickstarter, so that the overall that would actually break even. Well, now they're having to spend more money in premium price just to get these components and bring the timelines down. And
I mean,
whether the break even or not, I don't know. That's a question
it's an hard one to gauge, really. It's good that they're doing that.
Yeah.
But I mean, you look at how much revenue has gone through. It's 1.8 million that have been pledged on that project. But that being said, it sounds like a lot of money. But by the time you've gone through to the point where you're actually doing production on something like this, something as complex as this, fingers crossed that they've made some money out of this and made some profit out of this. But I think if they did another one, they'd still get a good set amount of people. They'd still get thousands of people out there.
They would. I mean, they did say they themselves are the people that they obviously wouldn't. Yeah, they don't want to be involved in a third Kickstarter. However, they're very happy for somebody else to take the project on if so be it, because there's obviously it's not been mass manufacturing, so they've not manufactured to the masses. So maybe somebody can make it cheaper and make a business out of it. But yeah, so the board's been updated, and obviously the certainly the last 3 months as well. It's the next ZXOS has got new features as well, so that's had an update. With some changes in there.
The way I see it right now, there's over 5,000 of these about to be produced. There was another few thousand before. So you must have heard this term. This year is going to be the year of the Linux desktop. Maybe this year is going to be the year of the ZX Spectrum. You never know.
No, you never know. But I mean, obviously, reading this update, as you can see further down the line, that's how I bought Z80 Brigade, because and it announced on this page also that it's gone physical, so you could get it on download originally. So I thought, do you know what? I'm going to get my first physical game since 1987 for an 8-bit machine, and I did. And yeah, and if you look further down, there's a game called Get Out, and if you look very closely, it looks slightly a bit like Wolfenstein.
It does, yeah. It looks like one of the early versions, yeah.
But yeah, it excites me, and I put it to the back of my mind, to be honest. So it'll arrive when it arrives, and I sort of from day to day, I sort of almost forget I've ordered one and there's one coming. And when I do, it's exciting. It does excite me to know that there's something will eventually come and turn up, and yeah, take as long as it needs to for me.
I agree. Well, this is great. New Spectrum's coming out. You've just bought yourself a physical, brand new Spectrum game.
Yeah.
But in 2021, who would have thought? What a fantastic way to end the year, if nothing else happens.
Yeah, it'd be great to get it for Christmas. What a Christmas. It'd be like, oh, God. What, I can't remember how old we were when we got a Spectrum, 13, 14.
A bit earlier than
actually,
that,
did you get a Spectrum? I don't think you had a ZX.
I never
you
had a Spectrum.
Acorn Electron, didn't you? So,
I had an Acorn Electron.
When did I get my Spectrum Plus? 1984. God, yeah, I don't even want to say how old I was. I think I was 13. Because we had the VIC-20 before that. So, yeah, I was 13. So, yeah, then I had the ZX Spectrum Plus 2. So, God, yeah. So, yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be like Christmas again. Definitely is. It's going to be like going into, and people outside the UK won't know, but running into Rumbelows and getting the pack with the. This is for the Plus, ZX Spectrum Plus, with the games inside. When you got games with it, you got a cassette recorder with it. It come with a bundle. Exciting.
For the people who aren't sure about what Rumbelows is, it's just an electronics store. We could buy a TV and other things, and you could buy the computers from there.
Sadly, no longer with us, but yeah, they did their own bundles, Rumbelows bundles, brilliant. So again, I'm making my own bundle. So I'll get the Spectrum next, and hopefully I'll have some games too.
And hopefully you get to play it for Christmas.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for this week.
It is.
So it's time to wrap up. So that's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
We shall see you soon.